My sister stole my husband and my parents protected her, so I revealed everything at her baby shower and destroyed their perfect lie. My parents covered up the fact that my own sister slept with my husband. I was completely shattered when I found out, and now at her baby shower, I'm planning to give them a gift that will make sure they never forget what they did, something they'll remember for the rest of their lives. Maybe the best place to start is by telling you a little about my family and how everything led to this moment. My name is Alex, and I recently discovered something that completely changed the way I see the people closest to me. But before I explain what happened, you need to understand what my family was like growing up. I always knew I wasn't the favorite child. Nobody ever directly told me that, but some things don't need to be said out loud. You can feel them deep down. It's in the way your parents look at you compared to your sibling, the way they talk to you, the way they celebrate your accomplishments, and how they always seem to choose that other person when it really matters. For me, that person was my sister Nora. She was always the golden child, the one who could do absolutely no wrong, the one who received all the love, praise, and attention, while I stood quietly in the background watching everything happen. Growing up, the difference between us was obvious. If Nora brought home a great grade, my parents would proudly display it and tell everyone how amazing she was. If I got the same grade, I would get a quick smile, a short compliment, and then somehow the conversation would return to Nora and her latest achievement. I was always living in her shadow. But despite everything, I never hated my sister. Yes, I felt hurt and frustrated by the way my parents always put her above me, but she was still my sister and I loved her. Back then, I honestly believed it wasn't her fault that our parents treated us differently. She didn't ask to be placed on a pedestal, and I thought that as we grew older, things would eventually balance themselves out. I believed that whatever unfairness existed during our childhood would stay there, and that as adults we would find our own paths and finally have an equal relationship. But I was wrong. I was so incredibly wrong. 4 days ago, everything I thought I knew about my family completely collapsed. It was supposed to be a happy evening. My parents had invited us over for dinner because they wanted to celebrate Nora's pregnancy. And honestly, I was happy for her. She and her husband Marcus had been trying to start a family for quite some time, and I knew how much becoming parents meant to them. So I went, even though I had that familiar knot in my stomach that always appeared whenever I spent time with my family. It was that same feeling reminding me that I was never enough, that no matter what I did, I would always be second place compared to Nora. My husband Daniel was right there beside me, just like he had been for the last 8 years. He knew how complicated my relationship with my family was, and he had always been the one person who made me feel understood and valued. He was the person who made me feel like I mattered. Or at least, that's what I believed. The dinner itself was completely normal. We sat around the table, laughed together, talked about the baby, and celebrated Nora's news. My parents were exactly how I expected them to be. They were glowing with pride, constantly praising Nora, acting as if she had accomplished something nobody else ever could. But honestly, I was used to it by then. I smiled, congratulated her, and pretended everything was perfectly fine. Then later that night, everything changed. After dinner, I got up and excused myself to use the bathroom. While walking back, I passed by the kitchen and overheard my parents having a quiet conversation. I should have just kept going. I should have ignored them and walked away. But something about their lowered voices and the seriousness in their tone made me stop. And that's when I heard my mother say that they would never tell me about Nora's mistake. At first, I had no idea what she was talking about. I stood there confused, trying to understand what mistake they meant. Then suddenly, the truth hit me like a punch to the chest. They were talking about Nora sleeping with Daniel, my husband. Apparently, it had happened months earlier, and my parents knew the entire time. But instead of telling me the truth, they decided to hide it because they wanted to protect Nora. Because in their eyes, their precious daughter's reputation mattered more than my feelings. They called it a mistake. They called it a moment of weakness. They acted like it was something that could simply be forgiven and forgotten because, according to them, the important thing was that Nora was pregnant and finally building the family she wanted. I stood there completely frozen. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. It felt like the walls around me were closing in while my mind struggled to process what I was hearing. I felt everything at once: disbelief, anger, heartbreak, and betrayal. The man I trusted more than anyone in the world had betrayed me. My husband, the person who promised to stand by my side, had been with my own sister. But somehow the betrayal from him wasn't the only thing destroying me. My parents knew. They knew what happened, and they made the choice to protect her instead of protecting me. Once again, they chose Nora. just like they always had. For years, I questioned myself. I wondered if maybe I was imagining the favoritism, if maybe I was being too sensitive, if maybe I was wrong for feeling like I was always second. But standing there in that kitchen, listening to them defend her, I finally had proof that everything I felt all those years was real. When they had to choose between her and me, they had already made their decision. And it was never going to be me. I don't even remember exactly how I left that house that night. I vaguely remember saying that I didn't feel well and that I needed to go home. I couldn't face them. I couldn't look at my parents. I couldn't look at Nora. And most of all, I couldn't look at Daniel. I got into my car and drove away, but I honestly don't remember where I went. I just knew I needed to be somewhere far away from them and far away from the reality that my entire life had just fallen apart. It felt like everything I believed in had been a lie. Like my whole life was some cruel joke that I was finally forced to see clearly. I felt completely empty, like I was falling into a darkness with no way to stop myself. It has been 6 days since I found out, and I still haven't been able to process any of it. I haven't confronted anyone. I have barely spoken to Daniel since that night. He keeps asking me what's wrong, why I'm acting distant, and why I won't talk to him, but I can't even look him in the eyes anymore. Every time I see him, the only thing I can think about is him with her. My sister. How could he do this to me? How could she betray me like this? And how could my parents hide something so painful and act like it didn't matter? I keep replaying that conversation in my head over and over again, hearing my parents say that Nora's mistake shouldn't ruin her life, that it was just a mistake, just a slip. But what about my life? What about my marriage? What about the damage they caused me? Do I not matter? It feels like I've been erased from my own story. Like I'm just a side character in a life that was supposed to belong to me, but somehow everything always revolves around Nora. No matter what she does, no matter how badly she hurts me, they will always protect her. And now I'm the one left trying to collect the pieces of my life, while everything I thought was real has been turned upside down. I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. I don't know if I should confront Daniel and demand the truth. I don't know if I should sit down with my parents and tell them how much pain they caused me. I don't even know who I should face first. Honestly, I don't know if I have the strength to face Nora at all. The thought of hearing whatever excuse she has for betraying me makes my stomach turn. But I also know I can't keep living this way. I can't keep pretending everything is normal when nothing is normal anymore. I can't keep holding this secret inside while it slowly destroys every thought, every memory, and every moment of my life. Part of me wants to scream at all of them. I want them to understand how deeply they hurt me and how much they took away from me. But another part of me just wants to disappear, walk away from everyone, and never look back. I don't know which side of me to listen to. I don't even know if there is a right answer anymore. All I know is that I feel completely broken, and I have no idea how to put myself back together. I've spent my entire life feeling like I wasn't enough, like I didn't matter. And after everything that happened, it feels like that belief has finally been proven true. My parents made it painfully clear that Nora will always come first, no matter what she does or who she hurts. But where does that leave me? How am I supposed to move forward knowing that the people who were supposed to love me, support me, and protect me have chosen someone else over me again and again? I don't have any answers. I wish I did. I wish I knew exactly what to do, how to fix this, or at least how to start moving past it. But right now, all I feel is this overwhelming sense of betrayal and pain, and I honestly don't know how to make it go away. That's why I'm writing this here. I'm hoping anyone can give me some kind of advice because I feel like I'm falling apart and I don't know how to stop it. I understand that people looking from the outside can easily have an opinion, and honestly, that's what I need right now. But being the person trapped in the middle of it feels completely overwhelming. Update 2. It has been more than 2 weeks since I made my original post. And during that time, I've had a chance to think, process everything, and make a plan. At first, I was completely frozen. I was consumed by pain, confusion, and disbelief. I couldn't think clearly because the betrayal felt too heavy. But eventually, that numb feeling started to disappear, and something else took its place. Something colder. Something sharper. Something far more dangerous. In the beginning, I thought confronting Daniel, Nora, and my parents would be the thing that gave me closure. I thought maybe hearing their explanations or apologies would help me move forward. But now I've decided to take a completely different approach. Yes, I will confront them eventually, but not the way they expect. I'm not going to scream, cry, or beg them to explain why they destroyed my life. I want something different. I want them to understand the pain I've been carrying. I want them to feel the consequences of what they did. I want revenge. And I plan on making sure it's done carefully and legally. Over the last several days, I've been extremely patient and methodical. They still believe I know nothing. They think I'm just the second-choice daughter and the wife who will quietly smile, accept everything, and move on. So I'm letting them believe that. Because while they think everything is under control, I've been working quietly behind the scenes. I've been collecting evidence. I've been searching for the truth and putting together everything they tried to hide from me. Because betrayal always leaves behind evidence. People might think they covered their tracks perfectly, but eventually, mistakes happen. Eventually, the truth finds a way out. And I'm determined to uncover every single thing they thought they buried. First, let me tell you about the baby shower. Yes, there was still going to be a baby shower. Just a few days after my last update, my mother called me with that same cheerful voice she always used, acting like nothing had happened. Like she wasn't part of the biggest betrayal of my life. She called to ask if I would organize Nora's baby shower. Because apparently in my family, I'm not just the forgotten daughter. I'm also the person expected to take care of everything. Of course, I was the obvious choice to handle the planning. And honestly, I couldn't help but think that if the situation were reversed, she would never ask Nora to do something like this for me. She wanted me to celebrate the person who destroyed my marriage and completely changed my life. The level of confidence and entitlement was almost unbelievable. For a moment, I didn't even know what to say. But then I realized something. This could actually work in my favor. This could be the perfect opportunity to create the moment I had been waiting for. So I agreed. I said yes while making sure my voice sounded completely normal. I didn't let even a hint of my real feelings show. My mother sounded thrilled. "Nora's going to be so happy," she said. I smiled while holding the phone, thinking about just how surprised Nora would be when she saw what I had actually planned for her. But before I made my move, I knew I needed more proof. I needed everything. I became almost obsessed with uncovering every hidden detail, every message, every piece of evidence that showed exactly what they had done to me. At night, when Daniel was asleep, I started going through everything I could find. His phone, his laptop, even old backups. He probably forgot existed. At first, I wasn't sure if I would discover anything. Maybe they had been careful enough to erase everything. Maybe they had actually managed to hide all of it. But people become careless when they think they've already won. The first major piece of evidence came from a hidden folder on Daniel's phone. He thought he was being smart by giving it a harmless name, something that wouldn't attract attention. But I know him better than anyone. I knew where to look. And inside that folder were pictures of him and Nora. At first glance, some of them looked innocent. Pictures that could have been explained away. But the more I looked, the more obvious it became. This wasn't just one mistake. This wasn't one moment of weakness. This had been an entire affair. My stomach turned as I looked through everything, but I forced myself to keep going. I needed to know the truth. Over the next few nights, I kept digging deeper. I looked through text messages, emails, old social media conversations, and anything else I could find. Eventually, I discovered messages between Nora and Daniel where they talked about how careful they had been, and how they made sure I never found out. Reading those words hurt more than I can explain. They talked about me like I was just an obstacle standing in their way. Like my feelings didn't matter. Like I wasn't a real person. But as painful as those messages were, they also gave me more determination. They reminded me exactly why I couldn't let this go. Then I found the biggest betrayal of all. Messages between Nora and my parents, especially my mother. She wasn't just aware of what happened. She had actively helped them keep it hidden. There were conversations about how Alex didn't need to know and how protecting Nora's image was the most important thing. Nora had even sent screenshots of these conversations to Daniel, reassuring him that my parents were on their side and that they didn't have to worry about me discovering the truth. I felt physically sick reading those messages. These weren't strangers. These were my family, the people who were supposed to care about me. But all they cared about was protecting Nora and keeping her perfect image intact. I saved everything. Every message, every photo, every piece of evidence. I stored it carefully and backed everything up just in case. I wasn't going to rush this. I was going to wait for the exact right moment. Maybe it would happen at the baby shower. Maybe afterward. But whenever it happened, I knew one thing for certain. When everything finally came crashing down, they would never see it coming. Update 3. It has been about a week since my last update, and there is so much I need to tell you. Honestly, I don't even know where to begin. What happened yesterday still doesn't feel real. It feels like something from a dream. Or maybe a nightmare. Depending on who you ask. I spent the entire day at Nora's baby shower, pretending to be the perfect hostess while hiding everything I was feeling inside. I played the role everyone expected from me. I was the supportive sister, the happy daughter, and the loyal wife. Everyone was there. Family members, friends, Nora's husband, and people who had no idea what was about to happen. None of them knew about the truth waiting underneath the surface. The baby shower itself was a huge event, exactly the kind of thing my mother would love. And as expected, she was overflowing with pride, making sure every little detail was perfect for her precious Nora. My parents had absolutely no idea that the real gift was coming. And this time, it was from me. A gift that would destroy the carefully built world they had created. Throughout the day, I could feel my heart racing. I could feel my pulse getting stronger, not because I was excited, but because I knew what was about to happen. I knew the chaos was getting closer. I smiled through conversations, laughed at jokes that weren't funny, and helped organize the mountain of baby gifts sitting on the table. I played my part perfectly. But the entire time, I was painfully aware of one thing. There was a ticking time bomb sitting right in front of everyone, and nobody knew how close it was to exploding. I could see how much Nora was enjoying all the attention. She was smiling, laughing, and soaking up every bit of praise from the people around her. But deep down, I knew that smile wouldn't last forever. The longer she believed she had gotten away with everything, the more satisfying my revenge would be. The moment finally came when everyone gathered around to cut the cake. People clapped, congratulated her, and celebrated what they thought was a happy occasion. Meanwhile, I could feel my heart beating faster and faster because I knew what was about to happen. It was time to give Nora her special gift. I told everyone that the gift came from my heart, but the truth was that it came from the deepest parts of my pain and betrayal. Then I stood up and prepared to speak. The room slowly became quiet as everyone turned their attention toward me. Nora looked at me with a huge smile on her face, clearly excited and completely unaware of what was coming. She reached for the beautifully wrapped box I had prepared. I had spent a lot of time making sure the presentation looked perfect. The expensive-looking wrapping paper, the elegant bow, every little detail was designed to build anticipation and make it seem like something truly special. And it was special, just not in the way anyone expected. Everyone gathered closer, curious to see what was inside. Nora slowly opened the box, and inside were printed photographs. Shocking photographs. Shocking. Pictures of her and Daniel together in moments that no family member should ever have to see. Private moments that exposed exactly what they had done. I had carefully chosen the most undeniable evidence, the images that left no room for excuses or explanations. The second Nora realized what she was looking at, her expression completely changed. The excitement disappeared first, then came confusion, and finally pure horror. The entire mood in the room shifted as people began to understand what those pictures meant. Everyone started realizing the truth and what it meant for Nora, for me, and for my husband. But I wasn't finished yet. As whispers started spreading and people began asking questions, wondering what was going on, I revealed the next part of my plan. I pulled back decorative curtains that displayed the same photos, only enlarged and arranged for everyone to see clearly. The truth was no longer hidden. It was right there in front of everyone. A public display of the betrayal that had destroyed my marriage and changed my entire life. Nora's face went completely pale. All the color drained from her cheeks, and she looked like she could barely understand what was happening. Her hands started shaking as she stood there trying to process the fact that everything she had hidden was now exposed. My parents immediately tried to step in. They reacted the same way they always did, trying to protect Nora and control the situation. But this time, I wasn't going to let them cover things up. I took a deep breath and finally said everything I had been holding inside. I explained the entire affair. I explained how Daniel and Nora betrayed me, how my parents found out, and how they chose to help hide it instead of telling me the truth. I told everyone how they acted like nothing happened while my life was falling apart behind the scenes. Nora's husband was completely devastated. The moment he understood what had happened, he stormed out of the room, yelling at her and calling her a traitor. He couldn't believe she was capable of doing something like this. And honestly, his reaction probably looked very similar to mine when I first discovered the truth. My parents stood there speechless. For once, they had no excuse. They couldn't protect their golden child anymore because the entire world had seen what she had done. The perfect image they had spent years creating around Nora was finally breaking apart right in front of them. Standing there surrounded by everyone, watching everything unfold, I felt something I didn't expect. I felt a strange sense of relief. After carrying that pain alone for so long, it felt like a weight had finally been lifted from my shoulders. Some people came up to me afterward and tried to comfort me, but at that moment, I didn't need sympathy. I had already done what I needed to do. I had exposed the truth. So I gathered my things and left. Update 4 weeks have passed since my last update, and I think enough time has gone by for me to finally talk about what happened after the baby shower and the consequences everyone faced after the betrayal came out. That night, after revealing everything and showing the evidence, I left the party immediately. I didn't want to stand there listening to everyone's reactions. I didn't want to answer questions. And honestly, I didn't want to look at the people who had once been my family. I had no idea what happened after I walked out until a few days later when one of Nora's friends, or I should probably say her former friend now, reached out to me. She wanted to ask me some questions. She had been one of Nora's closest friends, and when she started talking, I could hear the disbelief and disgust in her voice. She told me that after seeing everything I revealed, she finally realized who Nora really was. She said that if Nora was willing to betray her own sister and sleep with her husband, then how could anyone trust that she wouldn't eventually do the same thing to them? Seeing what happened at the baby shower completely changed the way she viewed Nora, and she told me she couldn't continue being friends with someone capable of that kind of betrayal. During our conversation, she asked me what she should do because she was worried about her own marriage. She wanted advice on how to find out if her husband had ever hidden anything similar. I told her that if she truly felt suspicious, she should look carefully through things like social media, messages, and any conversations on his phone that seemed unusual. I also told her that if she discovered something important, I would be interested in hearing what she found out. Because after everything that happened, I knew people would want to know how things turned out. But that wasn't the only thing she told me. Apparently, after I left the baby shower, the entire venue turned into complete chaos. It became a battlefield. Nora's husband's family had been there, and once they understood what happened, the anger exploded. There were arguments, shouting, accusations, and years of built-up emotions coming out all at once. Nora's in-laws were furious and deeply disappointed by what she had done. They said things to her that were incredibly harsh because they felt completely betrayed. My father, despite everything, still tried to defend his daughter. He argued that Nora was pregnant and that people shouldn't speak to her that way. But Nora's father-in-law wasn't interested in protecting her anymore. He fired back, saying that their precious daughter had done something unforgivable. He used much harsher words than that, but the point was clear. Hearing someone insult his daughter seemed to push my father over the edge, and he moved toward Nora's father-in-law as if he wanted to fight him. Unfortunately for my father, that decision didn't go the way he expected. Nora's father-in-law hit him once, and it was enough to send him to the ground. He wasn't knocked unconscious, but he stayed there, either because of embarrassment or because he didn't want to risk taking another hit. And the chaos didn't stop with the men. Nora's mother-in-law was furious and started arguing with my mother as well. My mother, of course, didn't stay quiet. She fought back and insulted Nora's father-in-law for hitting her husband. That only made things worse. The argument became physical when Nora's mother-in-law rushed toward my mother. According to what I heard, she grabbed my mother's hair so forcefully that other people had to pull them apart. My mother even lost a noticeable amount of hair during the fight, and someone joked afterward that she might need to start looking into getting a wig. Thankfully, some guests managed to step in and calm everyone down before things became even worse. I'll admit, a small part of me regrets leaving before seeing all of that happen. It's like missing the biggest event of the year when you decided not to go to school that day. There's a strange curiosity about wanting to see the consequences of what you started. But despite that curiosity, I know leaving was the right choice. I needed to protect my own peace and avoid getting dragged into even more anger, humiliation, and chaos. Surprisingly, Nora walked away from the entire situation physically unharmed. Not because people weren't angry enough, but because she was pregnant, and even the people who hated what she did had enough control not to hurt her. Although there is a possibility that the baby she is carrying is actually my husband's child, I remind myself that the baby is innocent. The child didn't choose to be born into this situation, and it isn't their fault that their mother made such selfish and destructive choices. Update 6. As for Daniel, my soon-to-be ex-husband, things have moved forward quite a bit. As soon as I was able to get everything processed, I handed him the divorce papers. Honestly, I'm surprised he avoided getting hit at the baby shower. But I think he understood that staying quiet was his only option. While everyone else was fighting and emotions were exploding, Daniel kept his head down and tried to make himself invisible. Somehow that strategy worked because he avoided the punch from Nora's father-in-law, even though, in my opinion, he probably deserved it more than anyone. Later, when Daniel finally came home, he found all of his belongings thrown out onto the lawn. I hadn't left a single thing of his inside the house. Every last item he owned was sitting out on the grass, waiting for him to understand the message I was sending. He didn't say anything. He didn't knock on the door. He didn't ask to talk, and he didn't try to explain himself. He simply walked outside, collected his belongings, and left. At least he understood the hint. Now the only thing left to figure out is what will happen with the house once the divorce process is completely finished. Over the past 5 weeks, neither my sister nor my parents have tried to contact me. They haven't apologized. They haven't blamed me. They haven't even reached out to ask if I'm okay. And honestly, I'm not surprised. Even though I was the person most affected by this entire situation, aside from my father's embarrassing moment at the baby shower, they still don't seem to have enough shame or regret to admit what they did and say they're sorry. If anything, this only confirms something I've always felt deep down. To them, Nora will always come first, no matter what she does, no matter who she hurts. Even destroying my marriage and humiliating our entire family publicly wasn't enough to make them stop and reflect on their choices. I spent my entire life trying to find my place in my own family. I spent years hoping they would finally see me, appreciate me, and make me feel like I mattered. But these events showed me the truth. It doesn't matter how much pain they cause me or how many times they betray my trust. I will always be the daughter they can ignore. Update 6. I love that saying, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And honestly, that quote perfectly describes what happened to my ex-husband. But before I get ahead of myself, let me explain what has happened over the last few months. It turns out that Nora's former friend, the woman I helped investigate her own husband, discovered something shocking. Her husband had also been cheating on her with my sister. As you can imagine, she confronted him immediately. During their argument, she mentioned that my ex-husband was also involved in the entire mess. And what did her husband do? Without saying another word, he went straight to my sister's house, the same house where she was living with my ex because they both believed the baby she was carrying belonged to him. And then came the part everyone probably expected after hearing this whole story. He punched my ex directly in the face. So even though Daniel managed to avoid getting hit at the baby shower, he eventually got the consequence he deserved. Of course, my ex-husband decided to sue him over the punch. I have no idea what happened with that legal situation, and honestly, I don't really care enough to follow it. As for my sister's husband, he moved out immediately after discovering the truth and filed for divorce right away. That divorce still hasn't been finalized, most likely because there is a baby involved, and those cases usually become more complicated and take longer to complete. My own divorce, however, was finalized about 6 weeks ago. For anyone wondering about the financial side of things, the house Daniel and I shared was sold, and we split the money equally. Neither of us is paying spousal support, and since we didn't have children together, the process was much easier and faster. Honestly, seeing how quickly my divorce ended compared to the never-ending chaos surrounding my sister made the difference between our situations even more obvious. Going back to Daniel after getting punched, he received another emotional hit when he discovered he might not actually be the father of Nora's baby. In a strange twist of irony, he decided to move out of my sister's house as well, because he couldn't handle the possibility that she had cheated on him. And yes, this part still makes me laugh a little. Although it also makes me question how people like this think. How can someone be completely willing to betray their own partner with someone else, but then feel devastated when that same person betrays them? Maybe I don't understand that kind of jealousy because I've never had the desire to hurt someone I supposedly love. The hypocrisy is almost impossible to ignore. It's so obvious that it becomes almost ridiculous. But the story doesn't end there because there was one more unexpected twist. My sister's baby was born, and just as everyone expected, a DNA test was done. The results came back, and Daniel was not the father. The baby belonged to Nora's former friend's husband, the same man who had also filed for divorce after discovering the affair. What surprises me is that even though this man turned out to be the father, there easily could have been other possibilities. Knowing my sister and seeing the way she handled everything, I honestly wouldn't have been shocked if there were multiple possible fathers involved. Considering the kind of people my sister and my parents are, this level of chaos doesn't even feel surprising anymore. For them, this is just another normal day. It's just the amount of drama and destruction they create has become so common that they barely seem to notice how unbelievable their lives have become. And no, neither my parents nor Nora have contacted me since everything happened. But this time, and only this time, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it isn't because they don't care about me as a daughter or sister. Maybe they're just too busy trying to clean up the disaster they created themselves. Update 7 first. I need to clarify something because apparently some people missed the sarcasm in my last update when I said I was giving my family the benefit of the doubt. I was joking. I was being sarcastic. No, I don't actually believe they suddenly care about me. Honestly, even if none of this had happened, even if there was no huge scandal and no public humiliation, I still don't think they would have reached out. Now, moving on to the actual update. My sister has ended up moving back into our parents' house. Why? Because the biological father of her baby decided he didn't want to stay with her. And while I understand that he also cheated, I can't really blame him for walking away. Staying with someone as untrustworthy as my sister would probably feel less like a relationship and more like a punishment. So now she is alone with a baby, and she has returned to the one place where she knows she will always be accepted without question. Our parents' house. As for my sister's divorce, it was finalized in a way that worked out very well for my former brother-in-law. Their shared house was sold, and he doesn't have to pay child support or spousal support. Honestly, I think this was probably the best possible outcome for him. He gets to walk away from this entire disaster without any financial or personal connection tying him to my sister. It's almost like life handed him an escape route, and I can't imagine a better ending for him. Nora's former friend has also finalized her divorce, and when it comes to the fighting, the yelling, and counting who deserve the punches, things have finally started calming down. Although after everything that happened, I think there are still plenty of people in this story who could use another reality check. For now, the physical fights are over, but the memories of what happened will stay with everyone involved forever. Some people will carry those memories in their minds, and others will literally carry reminders on their faces.